Well, as the American steel industry was booming in the 1950s, workers were calling for a bigger piece of the pie. When steel mills wouldn't budge, workers hit the picket line, and it was a strike with major consequences for places like Bethlehem Steel. Here's tonight's History's headlines. In the 1950s, American steel mills like Bethlehem Steel were booming.
The world was really dependent on the American steel industry.
Steel workers wanted their fair share.
These folks are saying, look, we want a slice of the pie.
Labor unions started asking for more money and proposed a clause that would limit steel companies from being able to reduce hours or employees. It was in the days of the Cold War, and the threat of a steelworker strike posed a serious threat. It could delay the nation's progress on missile programs. So it makes sense President Eisenhower would have an interest in getting things settled, but his efforts were unsuccessful.
The longest and costliest strike in the history of the steel industry hit the United States economy in 1959.
July 5th, 1959, 500,000 American steelworkers went on strike.
This was a big shock to a lot of people.
And it went on for 3 months. Safe to say both sides were a little stubborn.
The union people felt they were justified, and the steel mill owners felt they were justified.
A third-party board found it was impossible for both sides to come to any agreement. The union also tried to challenge a law that could give Eisenhower the power to end their strike to avoid a national emergency. It lost in the Supreme Court. Workers went back to work and turned down another contract offer.
The steel workers were in trouble. I mean, they rejected a suggestion of the President of the United States. They've suggested of other things. They just have not. They've shown themselves to be intransigent on this issue.
That's when Vice President Richard Nixon, with hopes of becoming president and likely wanting labor votes, stepped in. He went to the steel companies.
Quite frankly, you're not going to look too good if we're going into a recession as a result of your unwillingness to agree to giving something to the steelworkers.
It led to a 20-year deal. Workers got a small wage increase and health care and pension benefits. But during that time of impasse, other industries still needed steel, and they had figured out how to get it elsewhere.
They began to realize that they could import cheaper steel from overseas. It totally transformed America's steel industry. Was it an evolution? Was it bound to happen? Maybe.
And of course, we all know what eventually happened to the industry, as we have a constant reminder in our own backyard.